Hello, everyone. All right, I think that's on. All right. I figured I'd do a quick video today. It's Easter. I know we're all celebrating that He's risen. That's awesome. Um, I just wanted to share a few things. This probably won't be that long of a video, but I kind of felt bad, It's like I haven't gone to church. I just stopped going, and then I wait a while, and I finally go back, and then I realized like that's why I stopped going. So I guess it's just a culture thing. So I was out of town recently, and I went to a church. And it was a nice church. They were nice services, like by contemporary standards, you know, normal standards. I guess it was a good service. You wouldn't think anything different, but it's definitely not like first century Christianity, nothing like that. Even though they probably didn't use the term right then, but I know it took a while. But it's so weird. I feel so out of place. Like I just know, especially today. I went. It was a nice service. They had nice people singing. Everyone was happy. They did baptisms. That's great. I loved it. Like the baptisms were nice. I was outside. The wind was blowing and the sun was going, and it was nice. Um, but it just again, every time I go to church, I feel completely out of place. I just know like that's not the place for me. At least not here. Not the way they do church here. It was like it feels like a social club kind of thing. And like I don't know what happened to Easter dresses, but these ladies have no idea what modesty is. They have completely forgotten. And I guess that's why you don't hear them preaching on modesty in the church. I really don't. I don't hear that sermon often. I wouldn't expect to hear it on Easter, but I think maybe that should be the sermon they preach on Easter, because I've seen how these ladies walk in there. I just saw it today, and it's terrible. It's not good at all. It looks terrible. You get spaghetti straps, these dresses that hardly cover anything. I mean, I don't want to go through the whole list of infractions, but it was terrible. They really should preach modesty. Maybe that's the first thing they should do in Easter is preach it. Because that church today, even though it's like one of the best churches I've been to in town, I think. I've had the best experiences there in the past. But now I walk in there and I just know it's not for me. I mean, I could tell as soon as I drove up. We're pulling up and they got the Range Rovers and the Lexus and all this stuff. Like, it's kind of an affluent area, I guess. And it's a church that's been there a while. So apparently a lot of people there are well off, and okay. But it just makes me feel so out of place, because Jesus is supposed to be here like for the downtrodden and the people that are forgotten. And you can't find many of them there. Everyone there seems like, by worldly standards anyway, they're doing okay, financially at least. Spiritually, definitely missing the boat in some areas. And, no one's perfect. So we're not throwing anybody overboard here, but it's pretty bad. It's definitely not the place for me. Because I've gone to this church, and it's been a while since I've been in church. And you feel bad because, the church it kind of came about because of Christ, because of what he did on the cross and all the miracles he performed and the life he led. That's how the church was born, the Christian church anyway. So, you feel bad about not going. But then you finally go back, and I think it's 2 churches here I've tried fairly recently. Last couple of weeks, 2 different churches. And each one was nice. They were singing, and it was nice. And they preached the word out of the Bible. That's great. But I can just tell it's not for me. I can tell as soon as I'm pulling up in the driveway. And I just see all these affluent cars, and I look at the way they're dressed. It's just vanity, Like our buddy Solomon figured out after his whole life as being king, after his kingship was almost over or ending. That's when he finally got it. All the wisdom he had, he finally hit the apex of his wisdom when he realized that all those beautiful building projects he did, and I'm sure all the women that he had, and all the money that he had, and all the clout and respect and all that stuff, he finally figured it out in Ecclesiastes, which you don't hear about that book a lot, but it's one of my favorites. I like it because of the life he led and all the affluence he had and his wonderful wisdom, and everybody was so proud of him because of his wisdom. And the apex of his wisdom happened after he realized it was all a waste of time. Not saying that the projects he did weren't nice for people, and they probably helped people out, some of them, but he finally figured it out. It took him his whole life, his whole kingship. And then he finally figured out it's all vanity. All of it. It's all vanity and it's worthless. It gets eaten up by moths at the end of the day. And it took him his whole life. He had a privileged life. He came from a royal bloodline. Royal bloodline. This guy had everything. Everything laid out in front of him. He asked God for wisdom and he got it. And, that's amazing. But his apex of his wisdom, of all of his experiential learning throughout his life and everything that he had and all the Proverbs and all that, he finally figured it out in Ecclesiastes. It's all vanity. It's a waste of time. And that's how I feel when I roll up in that church today. Seeing all these beautiful, well-manicured cars and trucks and these super, look like tanks rolling around on the road and then Corvettes and everything else. Like, it's all a waste of time. It's all vanity. And the way people were dressed up, they had people getting baptized. I don't know how the water didn't just turn pink from all the foundation and garbage that they had on their face. They looked like little porcelain dolls when they were getting in there to get baptized. I don't understand it. Earrings all over them. I didn't see any nose rings, thankfully, but what does it matter? Your ears are all pierced up. You got rings and bracelets and all this garbage all over them. And they get in there to get baptized, and I don't know how that stuff doesn't run off. Their face is painted on. I don't even know what they look like under there. But old Solomon had it right. It's all vanity. All of it. And that's why I feel completely out of place. And it's probably for a purpose. I mean, clearly, I'm sure they've heard by now, seen the videos, somewhere. But they don't change, and I don't think they're going to. They're just trying to push me out of here. And eventually I'll find a way to get out of here whenever that time comes. But yeah, I definitely don't belong there. It's not my church. That's for sure. I'm like a little more strict on the Orthodox side. I was watching one of these videos the other day. It was one of these, it's like a Jewish enclave in New York. And it's crazy because, of course, it looks different, but the people are the same. It looks different. It's a different geography and the city looks different, but the people are the same and their beliefs are the same and the way they dress themselves, they don't really show a lot of skin at all, long sleeves, long pants. Very, very conservative. Not at all what I saw today, at all. And it's a shame. And I think that's why they don't preach modesty. And the guys, they're not off the hook either. They do the same thing. Wearing the tight shirts, the short sleeve, muscle shirts, all this stuff. It's just shorts. Guys are terrible with the shorts. These high shorts, these huggers and stuff. No, it's awful. But yeah, it's not for me. I'm glad I went back because I did feel bad about not being involved in the church and the church that was born out of Christ's sacrifice. I did feel bad about that, but it is what it is. If that's where I was supposed to be, I would know it and I would feel it. And I don't. Every time I go, I feel like I shouldn't be there. and it's not a mistake. It isn't a mistake that I feel like that. If that's where I was supposed to be, I would start glowing as soon as I walked in there. And granted, during the sermon, I did glow a few times, but, certain passages and things like that. So, obviously the scripture is there. The message is there. But the way the church is built currently and the way people operate and the social club kind of feel to it, no, that's not for me. And, that's okay. It's okay. So it's a New Testament, but I think we have to get back to the basics. I think they had things figured out a lot more back in the day, and certain religions do a lot better with it today. Much better. The Muslims and Muhammad's teaching and all that. Granted, I have clear problems with Muhammad and his teachings, but you can't throw away everything, right? Muslims, a lot of them are very devout. They love God, and they're willing to sacrifice for God. And, in their dress, in their speech, in their activities, they're ready to sacrifice a lot of them. So granted, Muhammad wasn't the guy, but you can't throw out their passion, They're passionate for God, their piety, their belief. You can't throw that out. They believe in God. Hey, that's awesome. That's the basis for everything. We have to believe in God, the Creator. That's the whole point. And then we have to follow God's laws. But, the Jews, the Muslims, it's granted that those aren't the answers, but that's okay. You know, the whole schism between Jews and Christianity, that is so weird. But it goes back to the fact that they didn't accept Christ. They were stuck on the Old Testament, you know. They didn't believe the New Testament. You know, God changes, I guess, based on our activities and time passing. Who knows? That's up to God. You got to ask God that. But there was an Old Testament, and a lot of those teachings are still valid, right? A lot of that animal sacrifice and sacrifice in general and blood sacrifice. No. But you can't throw it all out. And a lot of it alludes to Christ coming and sacrificing himself for us. So you can't throw it all out. But obviously things change. And, you know, now we have a New Testament, so things change. But some things need to go back. You know, Muslims, you know, Muhammad wasn't the way. But if you look at Muslims, they're very devout. They're very religious people. They believe in God. They're willing to follow the rules. They're willing to dress appropriately in public. You know, and I mean, maybe way over the top in some regards, you know, with the headgear and stuff. But if you choose to wear it and you like it, okay, great. Just saying it's not required. But a lot of their dress is required and it is appropriate. The majority of it. There's not too much that's over the top, and a lot of it is very appropriate. Whereas if I look at Christians, at least in my locale, the dress is atrocious. The worst. Some people there are dressed appropriately, yes, but they are the minority. The majority are running around in what they call Easter dresses, which looks like maybe a club dress that they just happens to be pastel color. So they put that on. Spaghetti straps, they had bras showing, skirts that hardly covered up anything. You better hope they don't bend over. Awful. The worst. I cannot understand how you let your girl leave the house like that. Dress like that. No. Nice long dress down to your ankles. That's good. That covers it up. Nothing skin tight. I mean, they had many dresses. You should have seen this place. It's like Club Christ. That's how it looked. And the preacher did a good job. Very energetic guy. Was reading the scriptures, telling the stories accurately. So that part of it was nice. But you would have hoped he would have stopped the sermon and said, can everyone please stand up? Okay, look around. All right, now let's go back to these passages on modesty that apparently y'all have forgotten about. But they don't do it because you don't want to offend all your parishioners. Because sadly, if you run them out the door, they're probably going to stop contributing. And I don't want to get into a money discussion, but that's another huge problem with the church. You know, I've known churches, they start off a certain size and then they want to expand because they have more people going there. That's great. And then they get bigger. And then it like turns into something else. And then it's like a corporation and like, oh, what's the year over year growth and the quarter over quarter growth from last year? And we got to constantly get more people all the time. That's when it turns into a business, right? I don't care if you have 10,000 people sitting in the pews contributing and you're building more basketball courts or more atriums or more whatever, more, you know, Christian schools, which I have no problem with. Public schools that's really rough because they're going to run into a lot of bad influences. If your kids aren't around people that are God fearing, as they call it, right? God following, then they could get in a lot of trouble, drugs, alcohol, sex, and everything else. But they just turn into these like big corporations and they're constantly wanting to grow, which means that your goal changes. Your goal isn't to save people. Your goal is your singular focus is, I had 5,000 people in here last week. I want to have 50, 100, 50, 200 next week, and then 50, 400, then 6,000. Oh, okay. But that's not the goal. If you got 5,000 people coming to church, that's great. And I hope they're all saved. And I hope they all live the biblical principles and they have those virtues and they're living holy lives. I really do. But there's a good chance that if you water down the message too much to get your flock, your congregation growing, you're going to lose a lot of those people. You might have butts in seats and you might have people contributing to the church, But the whole goal is to save their soul. It's not to get them to come to church. Church isn't the point. The point is to save their soul. And a lot of the times the church does help with that because it keeps your family and your children around people that have shared beliefs and shared values, and that's important. So the church is great for that. You keep your kids around people that aren't running around like super focused, like they're not just trying to have sex and hookups and that whole culture and drugs and alcohol and not locked into sports all day long. That's good. You don't want people distracted and partaking in vices. So some kind of social structure like that where you get together and you talk about the scriptures and you try to live those lives, that makes sense. But if your goal is just to grow, then you've turned into a corporation. It's not really a church anymore, it's a corporation. And then I'm sure those people in the church, behind the scenes, the people that work there, I feel sorry for them because the parishioners have it better. They get to come in there and just see, God's glory and the scriptures, and you get to talk about it and you get to commune with people, and that's nice. That's nice. But for the people that work there, I feel really bad for them because they have to go in to the back room, and start having those conversations and get the spreadsheets printed out. Oh, we had this many people last week, and last year we had this many, and this year we got this many. Who cares? The whole point is to save souls. You could have 5,000 people out there sitting around in lingerie, smoking joints and drinking wine and doing whatever they want. Yeah, they're in the pews. They're listening to the stories, and they probably like the music, the laser lights, and the smoke. They love it. I'm sure they enjoy it. But it doesn't mean they're saved. And it doesn't mean that they have a relationship with God. It doesn't mean they're in good shape when they die. So it's kind of a failure. If your job is to save souls and you're not doing that and you're not teaching God's principles, then you're failing. I don't care how many seats you have. Like, you could have 5,000 people in the pews and maybe 5 of them are saved and actually living those biblical principles. So who cares about the other people, right? Those 5 people you saved that actually live it out, that's awesome. It doesn't matter that you have 5,000 or 10,000 or 15 or 20,000. That's irrelevant. The only number that matters is how many are saved, how many are living those biblical principles. So I don't know. It's not all of them, that's for sure. Definitely not. But and that's how I know. It's like, it's not for me. It's not a place for me. And it sucks to say that because of who I am. But it's just the truth. And I've been out of the church for a while and I felt bad about it. And I tried to go back. And when I do, I just realize that's why you left. That's the whole reason you left. That's not where you're supposed to be. At least not here. Maybe somewhere, different culture, different country, somewhere where people take their religion seriously. It's not treated like a social hour. It's not like a social club where you get together and just chat with people. No, you get together and you talk about scripture and talk about biblical virtues and, Christianity and God, salvation, sanctification, serious topics, not always fun topics, right? Who wants to talk about gluttony and modesty and sin? Oof, those are tough topics because they cut people, right? It can offend you. It can cut you. It feels like a condemnation, but the standards of perfection are very high. So, it's extremely high. So you just can't. That's why the church isn't for me. I do what I can online, and I know it has an impact. I watch the news. I can see how things are unfolding, even though they're masked. So I can tell it's having an impact, even though I don't see it directly, and I don't really know the reasons for that. I know this is going to take, probably many years to roll out to finality. That's fine. But I know it's having an impact, even though I don't have a church. I don't have a budget at all. I wish I did. If I did, I'd be on the road already. But that's not how it's played out. And I guess maybe that's just not how it's supposed to play out. So I do what I can with, the tools that I have and the church that I have. This is it. As disheveled and ridiculous as it looks, this is what I have to work with currently. Maybe in due time that'll change, but it hasn't yet. So we'll see how it goes. But that's, I just wanted to give an update. So like I said, I went to church It's not for me. The Range Rovers, the Lexus, the Corvettes, all these cars, and the all whatever. So it's very affluent. I don't think that's really who I'm here to save. Even though, to be honest, like everyone needs to be saved spiritually. So regardless of whether they have money or not, to be fair, yeah, everyone does need to be saved spiritually. Their souls need to be saved. But as far as vanity and things like that, it's it's rife here in Jacksonville. There's a lot of it going around. And maybe I'm just supposed to be somewhere else to get things going, and that'll happen in due time if it happens. I don't know. That's up to God. So far, that door hasn't really opened. I've been able to travel a little bit to other countries, but there's always that money issue, because where am I supposed to stay when I get there? I can't swim there, most of these places. Can't walk to most of them. Otherwise, I wouldn't really be going anywhere differently. So we'll see how it all plays out, and I'm sure it will over time. And I'm still working on stuff. Still haven't gotten through my 40-day dry fast yet, so I'm still working on that one. I'm about 5 days in currently. Yeah, this is day 5. So far I feel good. The thirst is, I don't really get thirsty. It's not a traditional thirst. It's like keto mouth. Have you ever heard of that? Like from using ketones for energy. So, I got keto mouth. It's a little dry, but I'm not like super thirsty. My hunger is completely gone. I don't have any hunger at all. Doesn't mean that I couldn't eat a pizza or eat some food and some fruit. I'm sure I would like it. Yeah, I could, but I'm not hungry. Like traditional hunger doesn't really apply anymore. I don't get hungry like that. My stomach doesn't growl for food. It's given up. My stomach's kind of figured out that I'm trying to kill it. So I stopped getting hungry. Not really thirsty. And like I said, was it Moses, Elijah, Jesus? They all did it, the 40 days dry. So if they did it, then I'm probably going to have to do it. And I know I tried it once before and failed, but maybe that wasn't the time. I know God's timing is God's timing. So when it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. So I'll just keep plugging away. I don't want to do this again, to be quite honest. It's brutal. And I feel okay, but my lower back, I feel like a professional boxer's just been in there working me. Just pow, 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 pow. Just pounding me. The last started yesterday, and then today. Yesterday was worse. Today is still sore, not too bad. Whenever I get in the car, that's when it hits me. It's okay. Like if I'm in the house or doing something, it's not that bad. But if I get in that car, man, just it's like someone's just pounded on my lower back. And you would think that it's dehydration, but I'm not having any muscle spasms, nothing like that. So it's not traditional dehydration. And my pee, I'm sure you want to hear about this, but the pee color, it looks fine. I've seen the little charts and stuff that they put in the gymnasiums and stuff. Say, hey, if your pee looks like this, you should definitely worry. But it looks normal. Happy Easter. Now you know that. But I feel okay. It's just my lower back. Yeah, I tell you what, though, it feels like when I came back from the Keys, when all this started, that's when all this started, this whole awakening, whatever you want to call it, this whole process. That's exactly where it was, is my lower back. That's where it all started. That's how I knew something was going on. Aside from all the crazy stuff I was feeling and seeing, and the world completely shifted. When I got back from the Keys, it's like I got dropped off on another planet. Or I could just finally see. I mean, all the buildings and signs and everything, they were still there. And I'd seen some of this before. But after I got back from there, it's like someone ripped my eyelids open. And I could see this place for what it was. And I could see like all those signals that have been around me my whole life. I could finally understand them. It was like I was given spiritual knowledge. Like someone opened me up and like turned on the spiritual receptors, and I could finally see the world for what it was or is. And that's what it feels like. The lower back pain I have, that's the same exact thing. Almost like Paul had, like he thought the devil was doing something to him, speared him or whatever. But that's what this is, because my back had been totally fine, and now that I'm back in this spiritual fast, and granted it's only day 5, I got a long way to go. It's way too early to call any kind of victory. This could fall apart any second. But as of today, I feel fine. Aside from the fact that some spiritual boxers just pound in my lower back. And like I said, you would think, oh, his kidneys are going bad or something. I don't think so. I just don't think so. Because I don't have anything else going with it. My eyeballs feel fine. So remember the last time I was like, my eyeballs felt like they were sinking into my head? I'm not feeling that right now. My eyes feel fine. Pee color's fine. You're welcome for that information. I'm sure you really wanted that. But I just had to explain what I'm thinking. That's what's going on in my head. So that's okay. I'm not having muscle spasms. So 5 days with no liquids, I would think some of that would have set in by now, but it hasn't. I just have the pain. So maybe in the Bible, when they were talking about like Elijah and Jesus and Moses, whenever they fasted 40 days, I just don't think they were descriptive enough of what actually happened. And maybe that's because they weren't documenting it directly, like at the time it was happening. I don't know. I'm sure there was a lot more to those stories than just they fasted and then they were hungry. Well, thank you, Captain Obvious. I appreciate that. Yes, I'm sure if you fast the 40 days with no food and no water, we can assume that you will be hungry and thirsty when you break the fast. So thank you for that information. I just wish they would have been a little bit more descriptive. And then maybe I would know that they had these pains going on in their body, and it's not just my lower back. It's the top of my spine too. That's weird. And like I said, in the car, when I get in that car, that's when it hits me. The top of my spine, my lower back, it just lights up. I don't know if I'm not supposed to be in a car or what the deal is, but it just tears me up. And it's weird spots like the lower back. Yeah, people can say, oh, that's dehydration in his kidney area or liver. What? Well, I don't know. I don't know body parts like that, but I'm sure you could ask a nurse and they would probably try to explain it to you. But the top of your spine, how would they explain that? That doesn't seem like a dehydration symptom at all. That's just some kind of spiritual thing. I don't know. But the only other time I can relate to it is when I went down to the Keys and all this started. And the first indicator I had was my back lit up, my lower back. So maybe it has to have something to do with that, because the location is too specific, and this dry fast is too specific, and so far so good. I hope I don't fail at it, because I honestly don't want to do it again. It's not the easiest thing in the world, especially those first 2 days when your body's trying to get used to you trying to kill it. It takes a while. So I don't want to do it again. I'd rather just knock this thing out and be done with it. Because per the scripture, I don't hear about any of those folks doing that 40-day dry fast any other time but the once. So if I can get through this and just knock it out, and then I would love to do that. I don't want to have to come back and do this again. So I don't have any intentions of failing on this one. As far as keeping me alive, that's not really my job. That's up to God. So I'll keep it on as long as I can, to preserve my body. Would I eventually break down? And not food. Definitely not food. I'll at least ride this out for 40 days with the food, because I've done that before. I know I can do that, even though that's not easy either. 40 days is a long time. That's a lot of time to get through. But I definitely want to do the dry fast, because the other folks did it. And if I am who I'm supposed to be, then I'm going to have to do it, because then that just reinforces the Bible. It reinforces those biblical stories about those people that were chosen by God. So I'm just going to have to do it. And I would think if I was going to fail, I wouldn't feel okay today. I know 5 days is not the longest time in the world on a dry fast, but kind of is. If you ever tried one, you might have a problem with it, especially depending on the kind of job you work. But so far, so good. We'll keep it going. See how it goes. I'll keep you updated on my progress. But that's about it. I just wanted to talk to everyone. I know it's Easter and it's wonderful. I'm watching some of the services online, and those are great. But I just wanted to kind of contrast it with the services that I see here locally. And it would have been great, right? If I could just end up at like a local church here, that would be so nice and convenient. But that's definitely not how it's supposed to play out. They're making that quite obvious in the way that they present themselves at the church club. So it won't be here. I don't know. As far as timing, I don't know. I've got a few years in mind and how things are going to play out here in the next few years. But when that determines, like when I actually get on the road to go somewhere, I have no idea. I don't know that. I'll have to have some kind of financial backing to make that happen, just for flights and some kind of lodging arrangement somewhere. And then, like, what do you do when you get there? So I don't have all that figured out yet. But I also haven't completed the fast yet. And that's probably something pivotal that I need to clear up here before I even attempt to go anywhere. So I do have one trip coming up here to Mexico, but it's a couple months out. Tickets are there. The lodging isn't there yet, so it's not finalized by any stretch of the imagination. But I had some tickets, some old credits that I couldn't cash out. So it's either I use them or lose them. And I'm stuck because it's United Airlines. So I can't use any partner airline. So I really can't go anywhere far. I'm kind of trapped here in North America. I think I could maybe go to Canada and places in the U.S. Yes, go to like Latin America. I could probably get down there to some of those places. But I tried using the credits, and anywhere that is outside of the United Airlines framework ecosystem, they don't use those credits, and I don't have the cash, so I can't make that happen. But all I have are those credits, so I'm kind of trapped here in North America for now. But I do have a nice little trip planned to Mexico, which is going to be awesome. I've never been, to Mexico City. I went to Mexico for like one day and got deathly ill. I think I made a video about that, but I drove over there. I was going to drive down and go all through Mexico. I had these great plans. The back of the truck was all loaded up. I had these great plans to go down there. And then as soon as I get there, I get deathly ill, horribly ill. No way I could have done anything. I was hacking my guts out. Horrible. It's kind of a message, I guess that wasn't the time. So I packed up and drove home. But, you work with what you got. I had a game plan, and God kind of knocked me off my feet for whatever reason. I guess that wasn't the time. So in the next few months, I got a trip planned. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I don't have lodging figured out yet, so I may not get to go, but we'll have to see how it plays out. But I think that's it. So happy Easter to everyone. He is risen. It's awesome. Everyone's happy. But I just think the church needs to get back to maybe not exactly first century standards, but like first century compliance. People took things a lot more seriously back then because Jesus was just there. He just relayed all the information, all the biblical truths, all of God's covenants. And I think people took it a lot more seriously back then. And now, the further we go, the more we fall away from those standards. And we get more contemporary, more worldly, more vain. And, when I go to church, I just see a lot of vanity. It's all over the world. Anytime I go somewhere. I went to this nice Earth Festival. It's down in Tallahassee. So I went to this little Earth Festival. It was nice. How are people dressed? Terribly. What do you expect? College students in Florida? The worst. Not all of them, but the vast majority of them, in some respect or another. Nobody's, covered up the skin like they're supposed to, wearing the proper clothing. There's no compliance. But it is what it is. It'll happen over time. So that's it for now. But happy Easter. Hope everyone has a great weekend. And, keep praying. Keep talking to God. And we'll get through this. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend and a great life. And, I hope we get back to some strict godly covenants. But that's it for now. God bless.